Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we've got quite a lot to go through. We've got an update from the National Transportation Safety Board on the highly publicized accident involving a Tesla vehicle in Texas a couple weeks ago. We've got news on Tesla energy, manufacturing, batteries, and of course Elon Musk's appearance on Saturday Night Live over the weekend. Rough start to the week for Tesla stock, finishing down nearly 6.5% today to $629.04. That compared to the Nasdaq down over 2.5%, the worst day in a couple months for the Nasdaq. And we did see sector rotation today. The Dow was only down 0.1%, as the Dow is generally made up of lower growth, more value-oriented stocks. So I know the Tesla down 6% can sometimes feel a little bit rough, especially for newer investors, but for context, ARK's Innovation ETF, so a group of a lot of different stocks, was down by itself 5% today. Obviously Tesla driving a portion of that, but certainly the movement was not just isolated to Tesla today. Before we get into the news here, you may have heard already, but my voice is still recovering a little bit, so I'll do my best to get through this, but apologies for any disruption from that. All right, first up today, we are revisiting the unfortunate accident back in mid-April of a Tesla Model S vehicle in Texas. As I'm sure most of you remember, this received a ton of media attention because at the time, law enforcement said that they were 100% certain that no one was in the driver's seat of the Model S at the time of impact. You may remember that at the time, we went through a number of different reasons why this seemed implausible, and I felt like law enforcement was speaking far too soon, saying they were 100% certain of something without even having done a full investigation yet. So too soon, too much conviction, and this led to massive media coverage of this accident, a lot of scrutiny for Tesla. You've got Consumer Reports coming out and running some test about how they can defeat the safety features built in to help prevent people from using autopilot beyond its intended use case. Just keeps getting piled on, all because of this one quote from law enforcement. So here we've got the preliminary report from the NTSB. They say that, quote, "The crash trip originated at the owner's residence near the end of a cul-de-sac. Footage from the owner's home security camera shows the owner entering the car's driver's seat and the passenger entering the front passenger seat. The car leaves and travels about 550 feet before departing the road on a curve, driving over the curb, and hitting a drainage culvert, a raised manhole, and a tree." End quote. So just like we talked about before, the length of this road was just so short that the theory that someone would be able to go from the driver's seat to the back seat and still get in a high-speed crash, especially a driver in their 60s, didn't make much sense. So now we know that there was a driver entering the vehicle. They went 550 feet only. That's only 1/10 of a mile, 1/6 of a kilometer, and then crashes into the tree. We still don't know the speed of the accident, but even traveling at 35 miles per hour, that's only about 10 seconds. We also know from Tesla's Q1 earnings call that there was damage to the steering wheel, quote, "leading to a likelihood that someone was in the driver's seat at the time of the crash, and all seatbelts post-crash were found to be unbuckled." End quote. So Tesla's words there, as far as the NTSB report, this is just a preliminary report. They're not going to make any definitive conclusions here. But for my part, I would certainly have to agree with Tesla's opinion based on the evidence that has been shown so far. Regardless of the position of the occupants as far as autopilot's involvement is concerned, NTSB says, quote, "The vehicle was equipped with autopilot, Tesla's advanced driver assistance system. Using autopilot requires both the traffic-aware cruise control and the auto steer systems to be engaged. NTSB tests of an exemplar car at the crash location showed that traffic-aware cruise control could be engaged, but that auto steer was not available on that part of the road." End quote. So this is also something that we had expressed doubt upon previously due to the lack of lane lines on that road. So the NTSB preliminary report here directly conflicts with at least the reports of what the eyewitness statement was, which was that they had left to test the vehicle without a driver. So we'll see what comes of any future reports, but certainly looking like a case of just losing control under heavy acceleration versus something to do with autopilot. I mean, maybe you could say that traffic-aware cruise control was part of the problem here, but I don't know. It seems like a stretch to me. There's a much simpler explanation. So we'll keep an eye out for any final report here. I would imagine it would be a while from now, but either way, an unfortunate accident amplified by some law enforcement comments that probably shouldn't have been made, and because of that, I think also unfortunately damaging Tesla. Though I'm sure we'll get some coverage on this report, I'm sure it won't be nearly the same as the original driverless claims. All right, let's switch gears a little bit here, a little bit more on the brighter side. Elon Musk hosting SNL this weekend. I hope many of you got a chance to watch that. It is what it is. It's SNL, you know. Not everything is going to land perfectly, but I thought Elon did a really great job. It was fun to see him up there having a good time. Certainly should give some great templates for memes for years to come. And I think really gave some good exposure to Elon for people that maybe aren't as familiar with his personality and have only read about him or heard people talk about him, things like that. I think it was very humanizing for Elon, especially the opening monologue. Elon, of course, opening up about Asperger's syndrome, which has met its fair share of criticism too. People noting that's outdated terminology, but hey, guess what? There's a lot more people learning about that today than there were on Friday. That's all a separate conversation I don't think we need to go too deep into, but overall, I've got to think that the performance on SNL helped the public perception of Elon Musk. Also notable, with Elon being in New York for Saturday Night Live, so was the Cybertruck, and although it didn't make an appearance on SNL, we did get to see the Cybertruck driving around the city, and Tesla did put it on display for a little bit in one of their stores in New York. Always fun to see the Cybertruck out and about, and a nice contrast from when we had last seen it at Giga Texas, now driving around Manhattan. Alright, next here we've got some news on the solar roof. Not great news, but also not unexpected. As we had talked about when Tesla increased prices for those with existing contracts for the solar roof, I said we'll probably expect to see some lawsuits from that. Tesla does have flexibility in the contract to change pricing, but only if it's based on the roof complexity, or at least that was how it read to me, not a lawyer, but I did say that we should expect Tesla to use that as the reason for these contract changes, and that very well might be the case. Nevertheless, it looks like lawsuits are now being set up, so Business Insider today reporting that 2 people in late April have filed a lawsuit against Tesla in eastern Pennsylvania, saying that Tesla was in breach of their contract and also that the company violated Consumer Protection Acts covering home improvement and trade practices. Business Insider also says that, quote, the Pennsylvania couple's complaint said that it would seek class action status, end quote, and while that would require filing a separate motion, quote, the complaint said that there are more than 100 potential class members who would sign contracts totaling more than $5 million, end quote. Now, it's not clear to me if that is their estimate or if this is people that they've actually already discussed this with, but either way, unsurprising to see this. I did see quite a few articles on this today, so I did want to talk about it, and we'll keep an eye out for any developments there. Again, not a lawyer, but I wouldn't expect any huge liability from this. I think it's probably something that Tesla could pretty easily settle for a relatively low amount of money, and I'm sure Tesla thought about the risks of this before they adjusted the prices. Next year, we've got a couple of updates on Tesla expansion plans. First, over in Berlin, Der Tagesspiegel is reporting that Tesla has received approval to build a huge warehouse, 3 football fields in size, next to the Gigafactory there, and they are reporting that this could be used to house the battery cell manufacturing facility, but that would have to be on the basis of another approval. This is not yet approved for that purpose. So eventually could very well end up being the space for battery manufacturing, but right now that is speculation. We've also got an expansion update in Fremont, but just wrapping up in Germany quick, I want to point out one article here about top-ranking employers. This comes from Wirtschaftswoche, and they say that, quote, Tesla shoots out of nowhere into the top league of the most popular employers. Graduates see greater growth opportunities and more innovative strength in the US group than at BMW, Daimler, or Volkswagen, end quote. So the full article is paywalled, but they do caption the image here saying, in the ranking of most popular employers, the US companies Google and Tesla are at the forefront. So we've talked about this quite a bit in the past with the Universum studies, and I've kind of wondered aloud about Tesla's global rank because they do rank so highly in the United States, but it seems that limited international job opportunities have held them back from ranking globally, and I think we will see that change now with Giga Berlin, Giga Shanghai starting to come online. This definitely seems to support that idea, so it'll be interesting to see next year's Universum Global update. Right, then getting back to expansion, looking at Fremont, we have a report here from Tasmanian that Tesla has started expanding the location where they have the infamous tent. You may remember a few months back, we had talked about Tesla filing a permit for this expansion. Looks like that is now underway, so this is an additional 6,400 square feet. And the assumption here is that this will be more space for general assembly for the Model Y. It's unclear exactly how much production capacity this could add, but maybe that would be a good question for Tesla on the Q2 call. All right, next up here is some news on casting machines, otherwise known as gigapresses for Tesla. So IDRA is the group that makes these for Tesla. They are owned by LK Technology. Some images surfaced on social media of LK Technology making a 9,000-ton casting machine. And that'd be bigger than the 6,000-ton gigapresses that we know Tesla uses and the 8,000-ton one that they seem to have on order for the Cybertruck. So, okay, pretty exciting if they're now ordering a 9,000-ton gigapress. However, it doesn't look like that is the case. Ava, or Eva Fox, writer for Tasmanian, has noted that this machine was ordered by Ruili Group, which is an automotive supplier, so potentially another automaker could be using this press through them, which is actually pretty interesting in and of itself, but it doesn't look like this order is from Tesla. Saw quite a bit out there on that today, so I wanted to make sure to pass that along. All right, next up here, we've got an update from Panasonic. You may remember that back in February, Panasonic raised their annual guidance for operating profit and said that they expect their Tesla battery business to be profitable for them this year. Panasonic today has shared a little bit more specific information on that. Per Reuters, quote, Panasonic this business year expects its automotive unit to post 50 billion yen in operating profit, the company's CFO Hirokazu Umeda told a press briefing. Quote, the automotive batteries, which are nearly all Tesla, account for around 40%, Umeda said, end quote. 50 billion yen is about 460 million US dollars, so 40% of that attributed to Tesla would be about 185 million in operating profit for Panasonic on the Tesla battery business. Now, I don't know exactly how many gigawatt hours Panasonic is supplying Tesla these days versus LG and CATL, maybe somewhere around 30 gigawatt hours over the last year, which would be about 30 million kilowatt hours. So an operating profit of 185 million would be operating income per kilowatt hour of roughly $6. So probably somewhere around 5 to 7% operating margins, depending on what Tesla is paying Panasonic. So obviously, as Tesla heads down the path of building its own cells, its suppliers should in theory become a little bit less critical, but it is good for suppliers to have good margins. That means they'll be motivated to want to grow and expand with Tesla. And well, the better the margins they have, the more opportunity there is to bring costs down. All right, last couple of items here. Ford today announced that they will be unveiling the all-electric Ford F-150. They're calling it the Ford F-150 Lightning on May 19th. They also shared a couple of details ahead of time. Most interestingly, they said that the Ford F-150 Lightning will be able to power a home during a power outage. So maybe vehicle to grid, maybe just vehicle to home. We'll have to see the details there. But continuing to hear announcements like that from other competitors, so Tesla hasn't been super bullish on that, but they may get pulled in that direction regardless. Ford also said that the all-electric F-150 would be faster than the Ford F-150, which previously held the Lightning moniker back in the 90s and early 2000s. Or quicker, I guess they said. The 0 to 60 that I could find for that vehicle was 5.2 seconds. For comparison's sake to the Cybertruck, Tesla has stated on the single motor rear-wheel drive less than 6.5 seconds, dual motor less than 4.5 seconds, tri-motor less than 2.9 seconds. Lastly today is a report from Reuters about some tension brewing among Toyota shareholders after comments made by Toyota's president questioning Japan's intent to ban internal combustion engines by 2035. With Toyota taking the stance that flexibility is what's needed. Quote, what Japan needs to do now is expand its options for technology. I think regulations and legislations should follow after, end quote. So Reuters writes, quote, the 5 investors who collectively have around 500 billion in assets under management and spoke exclusively to Reuters said the carmaker risks falling behind competitors that are rolling out electric vehicles while giving cover for other companies seeking to avoid big changes to meet climate goals, end quote. The CEO of one Danish fund said, quote, we're genuinely concerned that Mr. Toyota does not seem to realize what is at stake here, end quote. That seems to be a good way of putting it after what we've heard from Toyota for the last couple of years. So with that, we'll wrap it up for today. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Tuesday, May 11th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.